Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Indie Zone. My name is Kathy. We'd like to direct your attention to a portion of the Dr. Brent Turvey expert report that has been under seal for approximately a year and a half, just recently unsealed to the public by Judge Stephen J. Hippler, specifically to Bates stamped number 004034. Here's where Dr. Turvey has some choice words to say regarding the lack of care by the MPD relative to crime scene security, interview, and suspect integrity at the scene. He states here at paragraph B, a basic consideration with respect to preserving the integrity of witness and suspect interviews is the immediate separation of persons at the scene. This helps to prevent collusion and narrative manipulation before or in the immediate moment of a preliminary law enforcement interview. Law enforcement personnel failed with respect to this basic duty of care. Specific failures which prevent reliability with respect to the statements taken at the scene and resulted in the abandonment of physical evidence include the following. It appears what he is stating in paragraph B is that there is a fundamental basic duty of care that the Moscow Police Department was charged with concerning scene security, the interviews that they did or should have conducted immediately, and suspect integrity immediately following the MPD's arrival on scene, starting with Officer Mitch Nunez at approximately noon, bearing in mind that the perpetrator or perpetrators already had an 8-hour start in terms of a getaway. The crimes, according to the state, occurred at approximately 4 a.m., but law enforcement wasn't called until minutes before noon. That question of why weren't we called was never asked on scene. What he is saying, because MPD did not comport with this basic duty of care, the statements that they got were unreliable. Regarding the first of the three supporting points, he says here, as observed on law enforcement body cams, all witnesses were allowed to gather together outside on the street for an extended period of time within law enforcement view, but well out of the earshot of law enforcement. And two, as observed on law enforcement body cams, none of the surviving witnesses from inside the home were properly interviewed on scene by responding officers. This is generally done to get a preliminary or rough version of events by those who observed it firsthand. It also better informs the safe entry of law enforcement, the search for others who may be or should be in the home, and evidence search preservation efforts. Without this information, it is difficult to separate victims from suspects once inside the scene, the result of which could be additional tragedy. So he's raising here in two the fact that officer safety is also implicated. He's saying here that these interviews that were conducted on scene in front of the house were poor, that proper interviews did not happen that first time. They only had one opportunity to get a first interview. And then number three, Dr. Turvey states, as observed on law enforcement body cams, the witnesses gathered outside of the crime scene were allowed to leave the scene by law enforcement prior to being subject to a preliminary interview and identity confirmation. And if you've seen some of the body cams, you see Kaylee's ex leaving. There didn't seem to be a lack of Moscow Police Department officers. There were 5 officers on scene within the first few minutes: Nunez, Warner, Gunderson, Snyder, and Smith, and then others coming, and they just appeared to be gathered out front for a period of time talking to each other, rather than interviewing those witnesses who were at the house when Nunez arrived and or taking them down to the station for further interviews at the Moscow Police Department. Now, what I'm surprised that Dr. Turvey, in my opinion, didn't raise the numerous amounts of time that the MPD went in and out after they knew what they had in that house. Officer Smith, for example, he was supposed to be guarding the back door. He kept going in and out of the kitchen area and having meetings with other law enforcement officials, like Officer Warner on one occasion, and Captain Lanier on another occasion from what we've seen. There was an opportunity for contamination of that crime scene every time someone walked in and out. In our next episode, we're going to go over a specific area of the report where Dr. Turvey mentions that there was unfettered access for 8 hours within that house that didn't appear to be properly investigated, and also why he feels that there was more than one suspect. Until next time, this is Kathy. Thank you for joining us here today.